Relax. Just for a moment, let the muscles in your shoulders soften. Let your breath slow down. Let the urgency that has been chasing you take a seat beside you instead of running your life. Because the very first truth your soul wants you to remember is this: you are not late. You are not behind. You are not off course. You are not missing anything that was meant for you. You are standing precisely where life has brought you for a reason that may not yet be visible to the thinking mind, but is already known by the deeper intelligence within you. So many people walk through life with a quiet anxiety humming beneath everything they do, an unspoken fear that says, I should be further along by now. I should have figured this out already. I should be someone else, somewhere else, living a different life. And without realizing it, that belief becomes a constant act of resistance against the present moment. You resist where you are. You argue with reality. You measure yourself against an imaginary timeline that the universe never agreed to follow. But the soul does not live by clocks. The soul lives by alignment. And alignment never asks, how fast are you moving? It only asks, are you present? Are you honest? Are you willing to listen? The truth is, life is not something that happens to you. It happens through you. And the moment you stop trying to outrun it, the moment you stop forcing yourself into a future that feels heavy and tense, something miraculous begins to unfold. You begin to feel carried rather than pushed, guided rather than pressured, held rather than judged. There is a wisdom orchestrating your life that is infinitely more intelligent than your worries. It does not make mistakes. It does not rush. It does not forget you. It knows exactly when each door is meant to open, and it also knows when a door must remain closed until you are ready to walk through it without fear. If you are feeling stuck right now, it is not because you have failed. It is because something in you is being refined. If you are feeling uncertain, it is not because you are lost. It is because the old map no longer applies and a deeper form of guidance is asking to take over. If you are feeling tired, it is not because you are weak. It is because you have been trying to do with effort what can only be done with trust. You see, the ego believes that growth happens through struggle, control, and constant proving. It tells you that peace comes after achievement, after validation, after success, after you finally become enough. But the soul knows something entirely different. The soul knows that peace is the starting point, not the reward. And from peace, everything else unfolds naturally. Think of a river. The river does not strain to reach the ocean. It does not panic when it encounters a bend or a rock. It does not compare itself to other rivers and wonder if it is flowing fast enough. It simply follows its nature. And because it follows its nature, it always arrives. You are no different. Every experience you have lived, every delay, every disappointment, every moment that felt like a detour has been shaping your awareness, not punishing you, not holding you back, preparing you. Preparing your heart to recognize what truly matters, preparing your mind to release illusions that no longer serve you, preparing your spirit to live from a place of authenticity rather than fear. When you look back on your life, you may see moments you wish you could change, decisions you regret, paths you think you should not have taken, but from a higher perspective, nothing has been wasted. Every step has been part of your awakening, even the moments that hurt, especially the moments that hurt. Because pain has a way of breaking open the places where truth has been waiting to enter. There are no wrong turns on a path guided by consciousness. There are only lessons that deepen your capacity to love, to understand, and to let go. And letting go is where the new beginning truly begins. Let go of the idea that you must struggle to be worthy. Let go of the belief that your value depends on productivity, comparison, or approval. Let go of the habit of telling yourself that you will be at peace someday when the conditions are finally right. Because someday is a story the ego tells to avoid being present now. Now is where life is happening. Now is where healing begins. Now is where the door quietly opens. The moment you stop arguing with the present moment is the moment the present moment starts working for you instead of against you. When you say yes to where you are, without resentment and without resignation, you create space for transformation that effort alone can never produce. Acceptance is not giving up. It is aligning with truth. And the truth is this: you cannot be anywhere other than where you are meant to be in this moment. Even your confusion has purpose. Even your waiting has meaning. Even your uncertainty is fertile ground for a deeper kind of clarity that does not come from thinking, but from listening. Stillness is not empty. Stillness is intelligent. When you slow down enough to be still, you begin to hear a quieter voice beneath the noise of fear and expectation. It does not shout, it does not demand, it gently reminds you, you are safe, you are guided, you are becoming. This voice has always been with you. It was there before you learned to doubt yourself. It was there before you learned to measure your worth by outcomes. It was there before you were taught to believe that love must be earned. It is the voice of your true self. And your true self is not in a hurry. The universe does not operate on urgency. It operates on harmony. Things come together not when you force them, but when you are aligned with who you really are. And alignment happens when you relax into trust rather than tightening into fear. Ask yourself gently, what if this moment is not a mistake? What if this pause is not a delay, but an invitation? What if the very thing you have been resisting is the doorway to your next expansion? When you stop trying to escape the present, you discover that the present has been quietly trying to free you all along. Freedom does not come from changing everything around you. It comes from changing the way you see. When your perception shifts, your experience follows. When you stop seeing yourself as behind, broken, or incomplete, you begin to notice the subtle ways life has been supporting you all along. The people who drifted away were making room. The plans that fell apart were clearing space. The uncertainty was loosening your grip on an identity that could not go with you where you are going. A new beginning does not always announce itself with excitement. Sometimes it arrives as fatigue, as dissatisfaction, as a quiet sense that the old way no longer fits. This is not failure. This is evolution. You are not here to become someone else. You are here to remember who you were before fear convinced you that you were not enough. And you are enough, not because of what you will accomplish, but because of what you already are. When you live from this truth, life becomes less of a battle and more of a dialogue. You stop pushing and start cooperating. You stop chasing and start allowing. And in that allowing, opportunities arise that could never be forced. Trust does not mean you will never act. It means your actions come from clarity rather than panic, from inspiration rather than insecurity, from love rather than lack. There is an intelligence within you that knows exactly how to move forward when the time is right. Your only task is to stop drowning it out with noise and doubt. So relax. Let this moment be enough. Let yourself breathe without needing answers. Let yourself rest without guilt. Let yourself be here without judgment. Because from this place of acceptance, something extraordinary begins to grow. A calm confidence, a quiet strength, a deep knowing that you are being led even when you cannot see the path yet. You do not need to have everything figured out to begin again. You only need to be willing to trust that life is unfolding for you, not against you. And when you look back one day, you will see that this moment, this exact moment, was not a pause in your journey. It was the moment you stopped resisting and started aligning. The moment you stopped forcing and started allowing. The moment you finally understood that peace is not the end of the path, but the beginning. Relax. You are exactly where you need to be. And something beautiful is already on its way. And as you remain here, breathing gently inside this awareness, something subtle but profound begins to reveal itself. You notice that the need to explain your life, to justify your choices, to defend your pace, starts to dissolve. There is a quiet relief in realizing that you were never required to convince the universe of your worth. The universe already knows you. It knows you beyond your resume, beyond your mistakes, beyond the stories you tell yourself late at night when doubt creeps in. It knows you as an extension of its own intelligence, temporarily expressed as a human being learning how to remember. When you truly absorb this, the tension you've been carrying loosens its grip. The mind has been working overtime, trying to predict, control, and protect. But the heart has always known that protection does not come from vigilance, it comes from alignment. The heart understands that when you are in harmony with who you are, life reorganizes itself around that truth. Circumstances shift, encounters change, opportunities appear without strain, not because you chased them, but because you became receptive to them. There is a sacred rhythm moving through everything. Seasons change without effort. The sun rises without consulting your plans. Flowers bloom without questioning their worthiness. And yet, as human beings, We often believe we must earn our right to be here. We place conditions on our peace. We tell ourselves that we will relax once we arrive somewhere else, become someone else, fix something else. But peace postponed is peace denied. And life, in its infinite compassion, keeps inviting you back to now, because now is the only place where truth can be experienced. The ego resists this simplicity. It thrives on complexity, on comparison, on endless striving. It whispers that rest is laziness, that surrender is weakness, that trust is naive. But these are the voices of fear masquerading as wisdom. True wisdom is gentle. It does not shout. It does not rush you. It simply reminds you that you are not separate from the flow of life. You are the flow, temporarily aware of itself. As this awareness deepens, you may begin to feel a softness towards your past. Not because everything that happened was easy or fair, but because you see it differently now. You see that the past was not a collection of errors, but a series of awakenings in disguise. Each moment shaped your capacity to see, to feel, to choose more consciously. Even the moments you wish had never happened carried seeds of insight that could not have grown any other way. Forgiveness, then, becomes natural. Not as a moral obligation, but as an act of self-liberation. You forgive not because others were right, but because you are ready to be free. Free from carrying old stories into new moments. Free from letting yesterday define today. Free from mistaking memory for identity. You are not what happened to you. You are not the labels you were given. You are not the roles you outgrew. You are the awareness, witnessing all of it. And awareness is spacious. It does not cling. It allows experiences to pass through, leaving behind wisdom instead of wounds. When you live from this place, you no longer fear change. Change becomes a companion rather than a threat. You understand that endings are not punishments, they are transitions. And beginnings do not require force, they require openness. This openness is a kind of courage the world rarely talks about. It is the courage to be still when everything urges you to hurry. The courage to trust when certainty is unavailable. The courage to listen inwardly when external voices grow loud. This courage does not announce itself with confidence. It reveals itself as quiet steadiness. And from this steadiness, intuition begins to speak more clearly, not as dramatic commands, but as subtle nudges, a feeling of expansion here, a sense of contraction there, a knowing that something aligns, even if it doesn't make sense yet. When you honor these signals, you are no longer navigating life through fear. You are navigating it through resonance. Life responds differently to resonance. When you act from alignment, doors open without struggle. When you speak from truth, your words carry weight without force. When you choose from love rather than fear, outcomes unfold in ways that thinking alone could never design. This is not mysticism removed from reality. This is the practical intelligence of living in harmony with your own nature. And your nature is not frantic. Your nature is not lacking. Your nature is whole. The moment you stop trying to become whole is the moment you recognize that you already are. From here, a new beginning does not feel like a dramatic leap. It feels like a gentle turning toward yourself, a willingness to honor what feels real rather than what looks impressive, a commitment to inner alignment over outer approval. This is where lasting change begins, not in pressure, but in presence. So stay here a little longer. Let the mind rest. Let the breath remind you that life is supporting you in each moment effortlessly. You are not being tested. You are being taught, not pushed, guided, not delayed, prepared. And when you move forward, and you will, it will not be because you were afraid to stay still. It will be because something within you felt ready, clear, and calm. Ready not because everything was perfect, but because you trusted yourself enough to begin. This is the quiet miracle available to you now. Not someday, not after. Now, and in this now, the soul smiles, because it recognizes that you are finally listening. And as you continue listening inwardly, something else softens the habit of measuring your life against imagined standards. You notice how often the mind has been trained to ask, am I doing this right? Rather than, is this true for me? And in that noticing, a gentler question emerges, one that carries no judgment at all. What feels aligned right now? This question does not demand a grand answer. It asks only for honesty in this moment. And honesty, when it is free of fear, becomes the doorway to peace. Alignment is rarely loud. It does not arrive with fireworks or applause. More often, it feels like relief, like exhaling after holding your breath for too long, like setting down a heavy bag you forgot you were carrying. When you choose alignment, you stop performing your life and start inhabiting it. You stop living as an idea of who you should be and begin living as the presence you already are. This is where true power lives, not in dominance or control, but in coherence. When your thoughts, your actions, and your values move in the same direction, life stops feeling fragmented. You no longer feel pulled apart by conflicting desires. There's a quiet integrity that begins to guide you, a sense that you do not have to abandon yourself to belong anywhere. Belonging, you realize, was never meant to be earned externally. It begins internally, the moment you stop rejecting parts of yourself in exchange for approval. When you welcome yourself fully, your doubts, your sensitivity, your questions, you create an inner home that no circumstance can take away. And from this inner home, you engage with the world not as someone seeking validation, but as someone offering presence. Presence changes everything. When you are present, you listen more deeply, not just to words, but to energy. You feel when a conversation nourishes you and when it drains you. You sense when an opportunity resonates and when it is rooted in fear. You no longer need to force clarity, because clarity arises naturally when you stop crowding it with urgency. This is why stillness is so powerful. In stillness, the noise of conditioning quiets down. The voices that once told you to hurry, to compare, to prove, lose their authority. And in their place, a deeper intelligence speaks not in language, but in knowing. A knowing that does not explain itself, because it does not need to. This knowing understands that life unfolds in waves, not straight lines. That growth includes pauses. That rest is not a detour, but part of the journey. When you honor these rhythms, you stop fighting yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, life stops feeling like a battlefield. There is a profound kindness in recognizing that you are allowed to be human while remembering you are also divine. You are allowed to feel uncertainty without labeling it failure. You are allowed to need time without calling it weakness. The soul does not judge the pace of its own becoming. It trusts the process, because it is the process. And the process is always bringing you back to love. Not the conditional love that depends on outcomes, but the steady love that exists simply because you exist. This love is not something you must attract or deserve. It is the source from which you came and the truth to which you return. When you align with this love, you naturally release what contradicts it. Resentment, self-criticism, the need to be right, the need to be seen a certain way. What remains is freedom. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. It is no longer being driven by fear. It is choosing from awareness rather than reaction. It is trusting that you can respond to life as it unfolds, rather than rehearsing it endlessly in your mind. In this freedom, the future loses its grip on you, and the past loosens its hold. You begin to see that every moment is offering you a choice, not between success and failure, but between presence and resistance. And each time you choose presence, you step more fully into your true identity. Not the identity shaped by expectation, but the one rooted in being. This is the quiet revolution taking place within you now. No force, no drama, just a steady remembering. And as this remembering deepens, you feel a readiness, not rushed, not pressured, but grounded. A readiness to move when movement is called for, to rest when rest is needed, to speak when truth asks to be voiced, to listen when silence carries more wisdom than words. From this place, your next steps will not be frantic. They will be deliberate without being heavy, inspired without being forced. You will act, not to escape where you are, but to express who you are becoming. And who you are becoming is not separate from who you have always been. It is simply the part of you that no longer hides. So let the unfolding continue. Let the answers arrive in their own time. Let yourself trust this deeper current that has been guiding you long before you learned to doubt it. You are not waiting for life to begin. Life is already happening through you, and in this gentle awareness, the new beginning is no longer something you anticipate. It is something you are living, quietly, consciously, one present moment at a time. And now, as everything settles into this deeper listening, there is nothing left to search for, nothing left to grasp, Nothing left to become in order to be whole. There is only this gentle recognition unfolding quietly within you that life has never been withholding itself. It has been waiting for you to stop standing in your own way. You feel it now not as excitement, not as certainty, but as peace. A peace that does not depend on circumstances aligning perfectly. A peace that exists beneath the surface of every condition, steady and available. This peace does not ask you to understand everything. It only asks you to trust the intelligence that brought you here, to this moment, to this breath. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You were never meant to solve life like a problem. Life is not a puzzle to be completed. It is a presence to be lived. And the moment you allow yourself to simply be, without striving or resisting, you feel how gently life responds, as if it has been waiting for this softening, this surrender, this quiet yes. There is a freedom in no longer demanding that the future reassure you, in no longer asking tomorrow to validate today. When you rest in the now, the future loses its power to intimidate you. It becomes an extension of the present, shaped not by fear, but by awareness. And awareness always moves toward harmony. You may notice that your desires change here. They become simpler, more honest, less about proving and more about expressing, less about accumulation and more about meaning. You begin to want what nourishes rather than what impresses, what feels true rather than what looks successful. This is not a loss of ambition, it is a refinement of intention. And with that refinement comes clarity. Clarity does not shout, it whispers. It comes as a quiet confidence that you do not need to rush your unfolding, that each step will reveal itself when it is meant to, that you will recognize what is for you, not by tension, but by ease, not by pressure, but by resonance. You are learning now how to live from the inside out, to let your inner state be the source rather than the result of your experience, to choose peace first and let action arise from that ground. This is the essence of inner freedom, the freedom to respond to life as it is without being ruled by how it appears. And as this freedom deepens, you feel a profound gratitude, not only for what has gone right, but for what has challenged you. Not only for what you understand, but for what has stretched you beyond what you thought you could endure. Because you see now that every moment was shaping your capacity to be present, to be compassionate, to be awake. Nothing was random. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was meant to break you. Everything was meant to bring you home to yourself. And here you are, not perfected, not finished, but real, awake, available, standing in the quiet power of simply being. This is where new beginnings are born, not from effort, but from alignment, not from force, but from trust, not from fear, but from love. So as you move forward, let it be gently, let it be consciously, let it be guided by the knowing that you are supported by something far greater than your plans. Something that moves through you when you allow, when you listen, when you let go. Relax into this truth. You are not behind. You are not lacking. You are not lost. You are right on time, exactly where you need to be, unfolding as life itself. And in this quiet certainty, there is nothing more to do, nowhere else to be, and nothing more to become. Only this living presence carrying you forward peacefully into all that is yet to come. There comes a quiet moment in every life when the noise falls away, when the voices that once affirmed you grow distant, when the hands you expected to reach out remain empty air. It is in this moment, not the loud, celebrated ones, that the real work of awakening begins. This is the moment that feels like abandonment, but is, in truth, an invitation. An invitation to discover who you are when no one is clapping, no one is guiding, and no one is standing beside you telling you that you are enough. If you are listening to these words right now, it is not by accident. There is something in you that already knows this season has meaning. You may not like it, you may resist it, you may wish it would end, but the soul does not bring you into emptiness without a reason. The universe does not strip away external support to punish you. It does so to reveal something essential that has always been there, waiting patiently beneath the noise. Most of us are taught, subtly and persistently, to look outward for confirmation of our worth. We learn to measure ourselves through approval, through recognition, through validation that comes from outside our own skin. And so, when that approval disappears, when encouragement dries up, when you feel unseen and unsupported, the ego panics It whispers, something is wrong with you. You are failing. You are alone because you are not enough. But the soul speaks a very different language. The soul says, now you are ready. Ready to discover a strength that does not depend on applause. Ready to access a guidance that does not come from opinion. Ready to feel a peace that is not negotiated through circumstance. This is the beginning of true inner freedom, the moment you stop waiting for permission to become who you already are. You see, the universe does not work for you in the way the ego imagines. It does not arrange itself to meet your demands or soothe your fears. The universe works through you, and when you finally understand this, everything changes. Because if the universe works through you, then the source you have been searching for outside has always been within. When no one is there for you, you are being asked to turn inward, not as an act of isolation, but as an act of remembrance. To remember that you are not a fragment begging for completion. You are a whole expression of life itself, temporarily forgetting its origin. The loneliness you feel is not evidence of separation. It is the ache of reunion calling you back home to yourself. Think about how nature grows. A seed does not ask the soil for approval. It does not negotiate with the sun. It does not check to see if anyone believes in it before it breaks open. The seed simply follows its nature. And in the darkness of the soil where no one sees, where no one praises, where no one supports, it does its most important work. Your solitude is not a setback. It is soil. In this space where no one is watching, you are being freed from the need to perform. You are being released from the exhausting task of proving yourself. You are being invited to grow in a way that is honest, organic, and aligned with who you truly are. And this kind of growth cannot happen when you are constantly looking over your shoulder, asking, is this good enough for them? Do they approve? Am I doing this right? When no one is there for you, you are given the rare opportunity to live from the inside out. This is where self-doubt often becomes loudest. Doubt thrives in silence when the ego no longer has external reassurance to lean on. It tells you that if no one supports you, you must be wrong. If no one believes in you, you must be misguided. But doubt is not wisdom. Doubt is simply fear asking for authority. And fear loses its power the moment you stop obeying it. Strength is not the absence of fear. Strength is the decision to listen to something deeper than fear. It is the quiet commitment to keep walking even when the path is unclear, even when the outcome is uncertain, even when the world seems indifferent to your effort. This is not blind optimism. This is alignment. When you align with your inner truth, you stop needing the world to agree with you. You stop asking for permission to trust your intuition. You begin to understand that the most reliable guidance system you will ever have is the one that speaks softly from within, not the one that shouts from without. The ego says, I will believe in myself when others do. The soul says, others will reflect my belief once I choose it. There is a profound shift that occurs when you stop outsourcing your confidence. When you realize that waiting for support is a habit, not a necessity. When you see that approval is a preference, not a requirement. In that moment, you reclaim your power, not in a forceful or arrogant way, but in a grounded, peaceful certainty that says, I am rooted in something deeper than opinion. And from that place, focus becomes natural. Focus is not something you force. It is something that emerges when you are no longer scattered by the need to be seen. When you are not constantly checking the mirrors of other people's expectations, your energy gathers itself. Your mind becomes clearer. Your actions become more intentional. You stop rushing, not because you are afraid, but because you trust the timing of your own unfolding. When you are alone, distractions lose their appeal. There is no audience to impress, no comparison to win. And in this quiet, you begin to hear the subtle wisdom of your own being. You start to notice what truly matters to you, not what you were told should matter, not what earns praise, but what feels aligned, meaningful, and alive. This is how you rise above doubt, not by fighting it, but by outgrowing it. You outgrow doubt by living in integrity with your inner self, by choosing actions that feel honest even when they are unpopular, by continuing to move forward, not because you are certain of success, but because you are certain of your sincerity. The universe responds to sincerity. It responds to alignment. It responds to inner coherence far more than it ever responds to force. And here is the great paradox. When you stop waiting for support, support begins to appear, but not always in the form you expect. Sometimes it comes as resilience, sometimes as clarity. Sometimes as unexpected opportunities that only reveal themselves once, you are no longer dependent on approval. You begin to notice that life has been quietly assisting you all along, shaping you, strengthening you, refining you, not through comfort, but through challenge, not through reassurance, but through self-discovery. Solitude, when embraced, becomes sacred. It strips away the false self, the one that needs to be liked, the one that fears rejection, the one that believes it must earn love. What remains is the authentic self, the one that knows its worth without negotiation, the one that acts from purpose rather than fear, the one that understands that peace is an inside job. This is where healing begins. Healing does not start when others understand you. It starts when you understand yourself. It does not begin when the world validates your pain. It begins when you stop identifying with it. You are not your struggles. You are not your loneliness. You are not the story of being unsupported. These are experiences passing through you, not definitions of who you are. When you release the need for external validation, you also release resentment. You stop asking why others did not show up for you, because you realize that their absence was part of your awakening. You forgive not because what happened was acceptable, but because carrying it no longer serves your freedom. Forgiveness clears the path forward. It lightens your inner load. It restores your energy to the present moment, where all real power resides. And in the present moment, you discover something remarkable. You are already enough. Not someday, not after success, not after recognition, right now. Your worth was never contingent on support. Your value was never dependent on agreement. Your purpose was never meant to be crowdsourced. You were designed to listen inwardly, to trust deeply, to move courageously, even when the way is lonely. This is what it means to get ahead, not ahead of others, but ahead of the illusion that you need others to validate your existence. Ahead of the fear that tells you you cannot stand on your own. Ahead of the old conditioning that says solitude equals weakness. True advancement is internal. It is the quiet evolution of consciousness. It is the steady alignment with your higher self. It is the realization that the universe is not withholding anything from you, it is expressing itself as you. When you walk this path, even alone, you are never truly unsupported. You are supported by life itself, by an intelligence that beats your heart, breathes your lungs, and inspires your dreams. You are supported by the same force that moves the stars and grows the forest. And the more you trust this, the more you feel it guiding you, not loudly, not dramatically, but faithfully. So if today feels lonely, let it be honest. If the road feels quiet, let it be sacred. Do not rush to fill the silence with noise or the emptiness with distraction. Stay present. Stay gentle. Stay committed to your inner truth. Because the moment you stop waiting for someone else to believe in you is the moment you begin to believe in yourself. And that belief, calm, grounded, and unshakable, is the foundation upon which everything meaningful is built. Keep walking, even when no one is there for you, especially then. And as you keep walking, something subtle begins to occur. The silence that once felt heavy starts to feel intelligent. It no longer presses against you as absence, but surrounds you as presence. You realize that quiet is not empty, it is listening. It is the field in which intuition speaks without interruption. In this stillness, you begin to sense that life has been communicating with you all along, not through noise or urgency, but through gentle nudges, inner sensations, moments of resonance that cannot be explained but can be trusted. You start to notice how often you once abandoned your own knowing in order to be accepted, how many times you softened your truth to avoid discomfort, how frequently you doubted the first clear signal from within because it did not come with external confirmation. And rather than judging yourself for this, you feel compassion. You see that this was never weakness, it was conditioning. You were taught to value consensus over consciousness, approval over alignment. But now, in this season of standing alone, you are being re-educated by your own soul. There is a maturity that arrives when you no longer need to announce your growth, when you stop explaining yourself to those who cannot hear you anyway, when your sense of direction becomes internal rather than performative. This maturity is quiet. It does not rush to defend itself. It does not need to convince. It simply moves forward, steady and sincere, anchored in something deeper than reaction. And with this maturity comes discernment. You begin to feel the difference between effort and strain, between discipline and self-punishment, between commitment and fear-driven persistence. You learn that forcing yourself forward while doubting your worth is exhausting, but moving forward from self-trust feels surprisingly light, even when the path is demanding. The weight you once carried was never the work itself, it was the resistance to believing in yourself without witnesses. At some point, you realize that solitude has sharpened your awareness. You can feel when something is aligned and when it is not, without needing to justify it intellectually. Your body becomes a compass. Your emotions become information rather than obstacles. Your thoughts slow down, not because you are suppressing them, but because they no longer need to shout to be heard. This is when you begin to understand that inner power is not dominance, it is coherence. It is the harmony between what you think, what you feel, and what you do. When these are aligned, doubt loses its grip. Not because it disappears entirely, but because it is no longer in charge. It becomes a passing weather pattern rather than the climate of your life. You also start to see people differently. Not with bitterness for those who did not support you, but with clarity. You recognize that everyone is acting from their own level of awareness, their own fears, their own unfinished healing. You stop personalizing their absence. You stop measuring your worth by their capacity to show up. And in this release, your heart becomes lighter, more spacious, more free. Freedom, you discover, is not the ability to do whatever you want. It is the ability to be who you are without asking permission. It is the ease that comes from no longer negotiating your identity with the outside world. It is the quiet joy of knowing that even if nothing changes externally, you are no longer at war with yourself. From this place, focus becomes devotion. Not obsession, not pressure, but a gentle loyalty to what feels true. You show up for your life not because you are trying to prove something, but because you are honoring something. Each small action becomes a form of self-respect. Each step forward becomes an affirmation. I trust myself enough to continue. And the universe responds to this trust in subtle, almost invisible ways. Not always with instant results, but with synchronicity, with timing that cannot be forced, with lessons that arrive exactly when you are ready to receive them. You realize that life is not testing you to see if you are strong enough. It is training you to remember who you are. There is a sacred responsibility that comes with this remembrance. Once you know that your power comes from within, you can no longer give it away so easily. You become mindful of the stories you tell yourself. You choose thoughts that feel expansive rather than diminishing. Not because you are pretending everything is fine, but because you understand that your inner dialogue is the soil from which your experience grows. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, peace becomes your baseline. Not the peace of having everything figured out, but the peace of trusting the unfolding. You no longer need to rush ahead of life or cling to the past for reassurance. You meet each moment as it is, grounded, open, present. This presence becomes your refuge. No matter where you are, no matter who is with you or not with you, you are at home. You begin to sense that this journey was never about being supported by others. It was about becoming self-supported in truth, about realizing that the same intelligence that moves through the universe moves through you, that you are not separate from it, not forgotten by it, not excluded from its abundance. You are an expression of it, learning to trust itself through human experience. And so you continue, not hardened by solitude, but clarified by it, not closed off, but centered, not waiting anymore, but walking. Each step taken from this place carries a different energy. It is quieter, yes, but it is also undeniable. It does not ask for recognition. It does not fear misunderstanding. It simply aligns, and alignment has its own momentum. This is how you stay strong, not by resisting vulnerability, but by grounding yourself so deeply that vulnerability no longer threatens you. This is how you stay focused, not by narrowing your vision, but by anchoring your attention in what matters most. This is how you rise above doubt, not by arguing with it, but by living from a level of awareness where doubt cannot follow. And as you move forward like this, you may notice something unexpected. You are no longer alone in the way you once were. Not because people suddenly appear, but because the sense of abandonment dissolves. You feel accompanied by life itself, by purpose, by a quiet confidence that does not need witnesses. You keep going, not because it is easy, not because it is guaranteed, but because it is true. And that truth, lived consistently, becomes its own support. And in this continued unfolding, you begin to recognize that what once felt like being left behind was actually being left alone with yourself for the first time. Not alone in the sense of deprivation, but alone in the sense of clarity. There is a difference between isolation